the midst of serious complaints from different sectors, the electoral body of El Salvador assured that Nayib Bukele, candidate for re-election, obtained 2.6 million votes. The United Nations joins all humanitarian agencies from Gaza in their call to the world to avert a tragedy in Rafah. And in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Doctors Without Borders and other humanitarian organizations denounce attacks on hospitals as escalating violence is keeping thousands of people trapped in crossfire. Hello and welcome to From the South. My name is Belén de los Santos, and from the Telesur studios in Havana, Cuba, we begin with the news. In the midst of serious complaints from different sectors, the electoral body of El Salvador assured that Nayib Bukele, candidate for re-election, obtained 2.6 million votes. Despite the fact that on Sunday the candidate of New Ideas proclaimed himself the winner, it was this Thursday night when the Supreme Electoral Tribunal delivered the cut corresponding to 98.7% of the tallied votes. The result is not free of suspicion. The Supreme Electoral Tribunal has not released the data on participation or the results for the parliament, although the candidate Bukele assured on Sunday that they had 58 of the 60 seats in the Legislative Assembly. On the other hand, a leaked audio of the same magistrate who presented the results affirms that the elections, quote-unquote, were a mistake. Venezuelan National Assembly rejected and condemned a resolution approved by the European Parliament that it will not recognize the elections or the results of the upcoming presidential elections. The resolution comes after the plenary session of the European Parliament demanded the Bolivarian government to allow the participation of political leaders who had been disqualified for serious crimes against the country, such as calls for foreign military intervention and the economic blockade. The Venezuelan parliament denounced that the European decision also intends to cover up the terrorist actions planned against President Nicolás Maduro and to undermine the normal functioning of the democratic institutionality of the nation. The Venezuelan National Assembly also accused the European resolution of violating the principles of international law regarding the respect for the independence, sovereignty, and self-determination of the Venezuelan people. In Colombia, social organizations marched to ratify their solidarity and support for President Gustavo Petro and against the institutional breakdown promoted by sectors of the extreme right wing. Thursday's event was called by political workers, indigenous, and farmer movements. During the mobilizations, the citizens reiterated their support to the administration of the Colombian head of state, Gustavo Petro, while demanding guarantees for the union and social movement. They also called for compliance with the constitutional mandate to appoint the new Attorney General and respect for democracy and the people's decision to elect a democratic and progressive government. Amid these mobilizations, the Supreme Court of Justice failed to select a new Attorney General. After 2 rounds of voting, none of the 3 candidates proposed by President Gustavo Petro obtained the required majority. This determination means that the Deputy Attorney General Marta Mancera will take over as acting Attorney General as of Tuesday, February 13th. She will remain in office until the full court elects a new Attorney General. Any of the candidates received at least 16 votes in order to be chosen, so the election was postponed to next February 22nd. Also in this context, President Petro denounced that infiltrators in the mobilizations harassed the headquarters of the Supreme Court, where the vote for the new prosecutor was underway. The court did not decide, so the controversial Deputy Attorney General Marta Mancera is the prosecutor in charge as of Thursday. The head of the corporation denounced the siege, which has already been condemned by the head of state. On Thursday, United Nations experts urged the United States to review its domestic frameworks that trigger specific sanctions against different states that have been designated as sponsors of terrorism. UN specialists declared that the unilateral designation in itself goes against the fundamental principles of international law, including the principle of sovereign equality. Furthermore, the process through which the designation is made is unclear and non-transparent. It was also said that relevant U.S. legislative acts exacerbate fear and uncertainty. At the same time, they urge the United States to fully comply with its international obligations, including outside of their borders. The experts called on the U.S. government to deeply review the current SST designation framework to prevent negative humanitarian impacts. And with Telesur, you can now celebrate one of the largest festivals in the South American continent. Gladys Quesada brings you all the details in this Carnival Time 2024. Tune in every day this week at 7 p.m. Caracas through our Facebook Live at Telesur English Official and X account at Telesur English and discover our most colorful celebrations. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. The United Nations joins the urgent appeal of all humanitarian agencies from Gaza and their call to the world to press and avert a tragedy in Rafah. There are more than 1.5 million refugees in that city located in the south of the Strip. The Israeli Prime Minister's order makes them all targets of war. More than half of the residents of Gaza were pushed to the south because Israel agreed that it would be a safe zone. However, for more than a week now, the bombardments have been constant against residencies, hospitals, and refugee camps. On Wednesday, the Zionist premier ordered his troops to prepare for an incursion that, according to the UN, will have a terrifying cost. And Palestinian authorities reported dozens of deaths and wounded in the recent hours after an Israeli bombardment of the Gazan towns of Rafah and Khan Yunis. The Palestinian government denounced that in addition to the shelling and raids by the occupation forces, Israel had placed snipers in the vicinity of one of the main hospitals in Khan Yunis. The authorities indicated that the Israeli artillery also fired dozens of rockets at the eastern areas of the city, which has been the epicenter of a ground offensive by the occupation army. On the other hand, the international community has expressed its concerns over Israel's orders to continue the raids on Rafah, where about 1.5 million people are currently sheltering. And in the midst of the Israeli siege, Palestinian authorities announced that at least 10,000 cancer patients are suffering the consequences of the raids of the occupying forces and the aggression against the health system, including lack of medical care and medicines. The Turkish-Palestinian Friendship Hospital in Gaza was providing care to these patients, but ceased to work after the Israeli attacks. On the other hand, the World Health Organization said that Israel has restricted requests for medical treatment abroad since 2021. We move on to other topics. The president of Chile, Gabriel Boric, announced on Thursday the activation of the National Reconstruction Fund for the victims of the forest fires in the Valparaiso region. Boric explained that this fund was created after the earthquake that hit Chile in February 2010 during the first term of the former president Sebastián Piñera to allocate aid from the private world to attend to specific needs of the affected families, communities, and municipalities. The recent fires have mainly damaged the communes of Viña del Mar, Quilpué, and Germán Villa in Valparaíso. According to the Legal Medical Service, at least 131 people have died and 50 bodies have been identified. The emergency in the Valparaíso region has also left some 15,000 homes affected. In southwestern Iceland, a volcano erupted on Thursday for the third time since December, spewing lava into the sky and triggering the evacuation of the Blue Lagoon Spa, one of the island nation's biggest touristic attractions. According to the Meteorological Office of Iceland, the eruption began around 6 a.m. local time along a 3-kilometer fissure of northeast mount of Sungungur. The site is about 4 kilometers northwest of Grindavik, a coastal town of 3,800 people evacuated before an earlier eruption on December 18th. The Meteorological Office also added that lava was flowing westward and that there was no immediate threat to Grindavik nor to a major power plant in the area. This is the third eruption since December of the volcanic systems in the Reykjanes Peninsula, which is home to Keflavik, Iceland's main airport, and several large cities.
During the last nearly 800 years, this area was dormant on land. There were a few eruptions in the sea just off the peninsula, but on land nothing happened for nearly 800 years. And in that time, the rest of Iceland experienced probably getting on for 150, 200 eruptions. So naturally, people thought this area was fairly safe. And so they started building, and you've got a number of important towns in the area. And it's been a bit of a shock that this has come back to life, especially when people realize that the past evidence that we gathered only quite recently is that eruptions could go on for decades, if not centuries, sporadically in this particular peninsula.
We now have a second short break coming up, but before, we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and also share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Stay connected and informed with Telesurf. Final short break. Don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. In France, workers of the Paris Autonomous Transport Administration demanded better working conditions on Thursday. Maintenance workers of this administration, known for being the largest public transport company in Paris, took over the headquarters of the entity during a protest on Thursday. The protesters demanded a wage increase of €300, equivalent to $324, as well as improvements in working conditions. The agency's administration stated that a system has been established to strengthen communications with representatives of the Transport Workers Union. Russian President Vladimir Putin and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping highlighted the strong diplomatic ties between their countries via phone call. Russian President aide Yuri Ushakov declared on Thursday's briefing that China and Russia are planning to continue joint energy project this year. He added that Putin and Xi spoke about building financial infrastructure that ensures reliability of payments, while Moscow and Beijing have increasingly carried out trade in rubles and yuan. During the call, the two leaders discussed the conflict in Ukraine and the intensification of the aggressions by the Tel Aviv army against the inhabitants of the Gaza Strip. Both leaders confirmed a common approach and seek to work towards a more just world order based on international law. Doctors Without Borders and other humanitarian organizations are denouncing attacks on hospitals in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, where escalating violence is keeping thousands of people trapped in the crossfire. Hospitals in North Kivu region in the east of the country have come under attack, and the safety of their patients and medical staff is at risk. Fighting attributed to the resurgence of the M23 movement has intensified in the town of Mueso, where several civilians have died inside their homes hit by bullets. In view of this serious situation, the organizations are temporarily relocating their teams. The coordinator of Doctors Without Borders stated that the situation is highly worrying. Also, Sudan's warring sides have agreed to meet for talks to enable needed aid delivery in their conflict-torn country, the United Nations said on Wednesday. The UN also appealed for $4.1 billion to help civilians impacted by the 10-month civil war in Sudan, warning the conflict had fueled epic suffering. The conflict that erupted in April last year between Sudan's army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his former deputy Mohamed Hamam Daglo, commander of the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, has killed thousands, including between 10,000 and 15,000 in a single city in the western Darfur region. It has sparked a humanitarian collapse, leaving over half of the country's population, around 25 million people, in need of assistance and protection. And in several Brazilian cities, the various activities for the celebration of one of the most important carnivals in the world have already begun. From the city of Rio de Janeiro, the carnivals of Brazil are positioned as one of the most popular festivals in the region, with dances, parades, and samba, to the point of being declared by UNESCO as intangible heritage of humanity. Rio de Janeiro offers one of the biggest and most awaited events by the population that will take place from February 9th to 13th. It is estimated that 1 million people from different parts of the world will arrive to the place to witness the display of the comparsas in the Sambódromo. Also in Bolivia, in the city of Oruro, the carnival began this Thursday with the realization of the Andean Nata, while the details from the official entrance of the festivity are being finalized. More than 50,000 people are expected to witness the traditional dance of the Tobas that will go through the main streets of the folkloric city until arriving at the sanctuary of the Socavón. The celebration is scheduled to begin this Saturday at 7 a.m. local time. Meanwhile, in Venezuela, in the capital city of Caracas, cultural activities began for the carnival. In the popular parish of El Valle, hundreds of children and young people took part in the carnival's shout with a caravan that traveled along the intercommunal avenue. The event was attended by the Executive Vice President Delcy Rodriguez and authorities of the governmental entity, among other members of the cultural movement of the area. On Saturday, February 10th, Carnival kicks off at the Sambódromo in Sao Paulo, and the communities are preparing for the biggest event in Brazilian popular culture. Our team tells us in detail what it's like in the most populated city in Brazil in the run-up to the event.
The Anhembi Sambódromo is ready to receive the samba schools of Sao Paulo. In the countdown to the biggest party in Brazilian popular culture, the Samba School Unidos da Vila Maria is moving at a fast pace to finish the last details.
The school has 70 years of tradition in the neighborhood. We started small and grew with the rhythm of the community, and the Samba School helps in all areas, both in commerce and inclusion, because it also generates income.
Throughout the year, the neighborhood has been preparing for a challenge where the collective is sacred.
Sometimes you need a lot from the community, and the community needs a lot from us too. So everything has to be integrated. The carnival must be together with the people who produce. Everything, anything must be discussed among all us, otherwise it doesn't work out well.
The resources from Carnival Conquest and television broadcasting are sources of profit for the Samba schools, as well as events during the year and donations. Dropping out of the special group of the competition can mean abrupt losses in resources with incidence on the budget of social activities, such as those developed today by Unidos de Vila Maria.
Beyond the carnival, there is a part that is the regard of the community. We also have dentistry, physiotherapy, ballet, judo, capoeira, theater, music. So the work that the Samba School does is much greater than that of the Samba Drum. But the Samba Drum is very important because there we get support to do all this.
In the school shed, Brazilians are working against the clock to finish making the floats. In 2024, the school will pay homage to Ogun, its Orisha and patron saint, by traveling the passage from Africa to the syncretism in Brazil with San Jorge.
To tell that moment of the Villa Maria with that energy, with strength, with battle of wanting to go up to the special group from where she fell, made this the theme that had to be for this year for her to talk about her own patron and warrior.
Despite its custom of being among the biggest samba school in 2023, Villa Maria was relegated to the Access Group. The energy of Ogum and the strength of the community of workers that day by day gives battle promised the return of the school to the special group of the Carnival of Sao Paulo.
Ignacio Lemus y Julia Nassif para Telesur.
And like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, my name is Belén de los Santos. Thank you for watching.